Disclaimer, I do not own the clips or music shown. These are used for review and entertainment purposes. Thank you. Gap and Gap House is me, Camden, on Channel Camden. Talk about Iron Man. Again. So, during an age of time, during an age before the MCU, where Marvel Animation made a few animated features that are direct to DVD. Some of those including Ultimate Avengers, which I talked about both movies. Next Avengers, a movie about the next generation of the Avengers, which I talked about as well, but the video. Hulk vs. movie where he fights Thor and Wolverine, which was more violent than I remembered as a kid. And a few others as well, but that'll be a topic for another day. Then there came an Iron Man movie. A film released in 2007 about, of course, our iconic hero, Tony Stark, aka Iron Man. As it was released a year before the first Iron Man movie, and the beginning of the MCU. And, of course, for some reason, not that many people talk about it. So today, I decided to talk about this 2D/3D animated movie and see if it holds up. Before we go into the main review, can I talk about how this movie was basically my childhood talks? Back to Childhood Talks, the segment about where I talk about my childhood for some reason. Okay, so yes, along with some of the other animated Marvel movies like Next Avengers and Ultimate Avengers, I watched those a lot as a kid on Netflix. Invincible Iron Man I watched as well, but not as much as the other ones. I watched it like one time, like it was like late at night when I was like 8 years old, and that's really like what I remember. And I have not really watched the movie since then. Some of the others I have, of course I have, since I reviewed some of them. It's promotion. And like the most thing that I really remembered from that movie was, it was the one with him in the CGI suit. Get to that later. So, years later, I decided to look back on it and talk about it, since not that many people talk about it. That ends our segment of Childhood Talks. Okay, so we enter the movie with like lights flaring and a bunch of electronic stuff going on. And also with an awesome theme. And it was scored by Guy Milchimore. And Guy Milchimore scored practically my entire childhood. So the film opens with a bunch of people, construction and everything. And we also have James Rhodey, aka War Machine. And they find out that there are some weapons by Stark Industries. And also, the film is this little Easter egg here, where, like, first, okay, there's O Stain for, like, Obaya Stain. And then there's H Stark for Howard Stark. T for Tony Stark. And then there's Johnny Storm, which is J. And then S Storm for Sue Storm. So that kind of confirms that the Fantastic Four exist in this universe. Look at this phone. Shows this movie's age. The plot, like I said, that Rhodes is calling Tony about the Stark weapons that are being sold. And how they could be potentially dangerous. Cut to Tony yelling at his dad. Yes, his dad is alive. It turns out that his dad is selling the weapons, not Tony. And Tony is mad about that. Okay, that's one of the most major problems of this movie, is that in the comics, and in the MCU, and in a bunch of other adaptations. Iron Man is all about a man trying to rebuild himself and trying to change his ways after figuring out that the things he did in the past were given to the wrong hands. And we don't see our main character grow and progress like in the comics and in the MCU. Here he's just like right from the gate humble and more heroic and like, no, Dad, we can't sell those weapons. There could be danger. MCU, he didn't really care until he got trapped in that cave. Later on, the same thing does happen to him in this movie, which I'll get to in a bit. But this movie, it doesn't feel as earned when Tony becomes Iron Man later on. We don't have as much as a connection with him as we should. Like I said, this came before the MCU. Well, now, we all know this guy. We all know Tony Stark. Back then, people know him, but not everyone in the general audience. If someone who doesn't read a lot of comics and is not super into Marvel and haven't watched like some of the Marvel cartoons here and there, they wouldn't be as interested with this character if this was their introduction. A lot of people got introduced to Robert Downey Jr.'s version of the character, and that's how like the general audience and everyone around the world love him today. Anyways, like I said, he does get affected by this later. This launches, and we get to see Tony have that major injury. And for an animated movie, there's a bit of blood in that scene. Like, super gory, but it's there. And it's something I didn't expect. And instead of being trapped in a cave, he's trapped in a palace. He's not even trapped alone, and you know, you may ask, oh, maybe he's only trapped with Yinsen. No, he's trapped with Rhodey as well. I think the whole thing is that Tony was alone, so he had to build the suit alone and big himself back up. You know, never mind. And also, we get introduced to this character named Li Mei. And she's the love interest. Not Pepper, Li Mei. And Li Mei is a character that works for an organization. A very evil organization. And she's torn with it, and she doesn't want to do evil, and she doesn't want to kill others. And that's an interesting concept. Her and Tony could have interesting talks, and it could really show how much Tony's weapons could affect people. Excuse me, Howard's weapons, but still. And then we get introduced to the Marc Worden armor soon. And, you know what I said about it being CGI earlier? Every one of Tony's suits in this movie is completely CGI, or everything else is 2D.
Promise me, you'll never come back.
Yes, I know. I get more into it later about the action scenes, but it's just...
Come on, man. We gotta go.
Not as fun looking at the action in this movie.
Without you.
So take a show like Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, for example. You feel the fight scenes there when Tony's in the suit. Because it's 2D, of course, but still.
Electromagnetic pulse! Ultimate power. Fine. Divert power to repulsors.
Show like a show that was completely 3D, you can still feel the fight scenes there. I mean, mainly because it has one animation style and not trying to use two at the same time. These clips I just showed you were fast and exciting. Here, CGI-Man and the Elementals, they move very slowly, and they pull out their fighting techniques very slowly. This is how long it takes Tony Stark to pull out his repulsor rays. I got it. Avengers, I'm gonna need you. Hulk, smash! Hawkeye, you shoot your bow and arrow. Thor, you throw lightning in the sky. And Tony, I gotcha.
3 hours later.
Don't worry, I got it. I got it. I'm sure, Steve. Okay, so the Elementals' goal are that they want to get the rings. You know, like the 10 rings. And they want to revive the Mandarin. Like the real Mandarin, not an actor. And then the character I mentioned earlier, Lee May, still struggles with those moralities. And she intends to get the rings as well. So later on, we get to our final battle. So while I was on the subject of battles, CGI-Man sucks at fighting in this movie. Showing this final battle, he doesn't really win either. He just does it by talking, which I'll get in a bit. And then eventually the Mandarin gets unleashed. And he does this by possessing someone. By possessing Lee May. Everyone do the exercise. How to solve this type of problem. And also CGI-Man still sucks at fighting. And then the power of love. I'm not kidding. He defeats the Mandarin. And then Lee May just straight up dies. Before she dies, they kiss. Rise of Skywalker style. And then after that, like, Tony goes back to the Stark Tower, and the S.H.I.E.L.D. plotline was covered up off screen. Then Tony and Howard, they're all smiling at each other and they're happy. And then, like, the movie just ends right there. I mean, it's like, it knows, like, Tony did not learn that much. Though it acts like he did, but he was sort of the same guy throughout the movie. For the fact he has a CGI suit. And the movie did not end with him, like, flying as Iron Man, like flying high in the sky, like you would expect most comic book movies from that era to do. With Parker Nickelback playing in the background, I don't know. And, like, the movie just ends right there. So, what did I think of it? Invincible CGI-Man was, like, not terrible, but it wasn't, like, nothing to be remembered that much either. I guess it kind of makes sense. So, I guess that's why no one really talks about it? That's probably the reason? And I don't know, it's just, like, it's like, I'm glad I rediscovered it, but it's still not nothing for me to be favoring. Like I said, Tony does not have that much of a strong character development in this movie as much as other adaptations. And the action scenes are interesting. But then again, there's some good voice acting here. Like, Marc Worden voiced Iron Man, just like how he voiced him in Ultimate Avengers. And also, Guy Mitchellmore is awesome, as always. So, would I recommend it? Sure. Like, it's something bizarre, but it's something that, like, you would end up discovering soon enough. And it was something that would catch your interest. I give this movie 6 donuts. It's a okay superhero movie, but it's something that would catch your attention at least. We watched this movie. I don't know. Maybe someday I will when I'm bored. I always like the fact that this and some of the other Marvel animated stuff, like, kind of reminds me of, like, a different time of Marvel, like, before the MCU and everything. Like, Guy Mitchellmore and Marc Worden as Iron Man. Like, it just, like, took me back to those times. Like, it was a little different back then. Like, where, like, people did not know these characters as much as they do today. And they didn't have to worry too much about who owns who at that time. Well, in 2007, they did. But, like, still pre-2008, they didn't have to worry as much. It's just like that with, like, Avengers EMH, and Marvel Ultimate Alliance, and Spectacular Spider-Man, and a few others. Superhero Squad show, I'm not forgetting. Anyways, also, this is the start of Season 4 of Channel Camden. And, I'd like to say thank you guys for watching, and stuff like that. And there will be a lot of things I'll talk about this season. Hope you like, comment, and subscribe. I wonder what I'm talking about next time.
You'll see, boy. You'll see.